Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy New Year, and welcome to another episode of From the Ground Up, real time issues with real time solutions for MWBEs and small businesses. We are so excited to have you join us for a new year of content, information, real time solutions for what we are facing in 2022. My running joke has been someone said that 2020 was interesting and then 2021 looked like 2020 with a wig on, and we don't know what britches 2022 has. But no worries, we are here with you through the process as we grow as businesses and make sure that we can contribute what we can to making sure that our communities are better and that our businesses are supplying the answers to what we see in the marketplace. So, on behalf of Creed Strategy Partners, Nicole Valentine, Esquire, Danielle Douglas, and myself, Dr. Stacey H.C. Grant, we welcome you to the show. Make sure you invite somebody to this show. I'm telling you, you really want to bless another business today because our show is going to be incredible. So just press the share button, let somebody know that you are tuning in, type in the chat. And if you're catching the replay, hashtag replay so that we know that you were here. This is the most favorite part of the show for me, where I get to introduce my beautiful, talented, amazing co-host, my dear sister, the one and only Danielle Douglas. Over to you, Danielle.
And I always say, I love you back, Miss Dr. Stacey C. Grant. And, Stacey and I, we really take a lot of time to think about what topics we want to talk about. And you know what? It was not hard this time around because it's been so much going on. Folks, since the last time we seen you, Omicron has jumped off. People are like out sick. I mean, Omicron is like ubiquitous. It's like pixie dust. You just breathe and you feel like, what the heck is going on? And for business owners, it has had a significant impact because we know you may be short staffed, you may be out yourself, you may have a family member that's sick that you got to take care of. It's like chaos going on. But we still want to be a solution for you. And so the topic today is real-time HR and health solutions for your business in the midst of Omicron. And we have two fabulous guests with us today. I mean, when we talk about subject matter experts, they're going to give you the real deal today. So you got to stay for the whole hour, but it's going to be worth your time. And so with that said, I have the opportunity to introduce our first guest, Miss Latoya Ellis Aline. Latoya is a dynamic leader with diversified experience in generalist and specialist roles in the nonprofit, startup, social services, logistics, warehousing and distribution, healthcare, education, and technology industries. Oh my gosh. She is a jack of all trades, a master of them all. And with over 17 years of experience and significant accomplishments in companies undergoing substantial growth, such as the NYC Health and Hospitals, City Harvest, and services for the underserved. Latoya is a well-rounded HR professional whose specialty lies in employee and labor relations, benefits administration, performance management, organizational development, talent acquisition, talent management, compliance, HRIS, and HR metrics. And she prides herself in providing proactive best practices. And so, with human resource solutions to a wide variety of staff levels on a wide variety of issues. Sounds like dealing with real time issues and giving real time solutions. Latoya is currently the Director of Human Resources for City Harvest and continuously proving herself a strategic thinker, pragmatic problem solver, and consultative business partner. And last but not least, I want to say she is the illustrious soror of Delta Sigma Theta. Ooh, it's good to see you, Latoya.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for the conversation we're about to embark on. Like you said, real-time challenges and real-time solutions.
And I'm going to turn it over to my co-host, Miss Dr. Stacey C. Grant, so she can introduce our next lovely guest.
Absolutely. And, as we give the D9 love out in the world, I see Ruthie, she's shouting you out as well. And
Oh, Ruthie.
so I might have to figure out getting Latanya to be a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated to balance it out, but we're not going to stress Latanya. We're going to tell you about this incredible. I mean, she's a resident expert now on the show at this point. So we're thrilled to have her here. And hey, Quinn, thank you also for tuning in. She's a career and workplace expert that helps clients and individuals discover what's possible in their workforce and careers. She's the president and CEO of the Pouncey Group, LLC, comprised of Talent Mix Staffing, a full service staffing, recruiting, and HR consulting firm based out of New York and New Jersey. She's responsible for the strategic direction and vision and leading all operations across the firm, and has a successful track record of managing and advising on large and complex corporate benefits programs, talent management, and strategic diversity initiatives for a global workforce. That definitely is a real-time solution for most of the businesses watching. She spent most of her career in New York City, working in the aerospace and defense industry, and has been recognized as the top executive in corporate diversity and a top 10 influential woman in global diversity. She has been featured in a number of publications and is a member of the Society for Human Resource Management, American Staffing Association, Staffing Management Association of New Jersey, and the C-Suite Network. She's a native of New Jersey. She holds a master's degree in organizational management and a bachelor's in sociology and a certification in diversity management. Do you think she knows a little bit about a little bit when it comes to how to really get that talent, staff it, and support in this very diverse world that we're living in? So welcome back to the show once again, Latanya Pouncey. Woo! So let me give all of you a round of applause. And we appreciate you being with us today because, as my dear co-host said, that this Omicron has been a very interesting situation. And as we watch what we see happening, we need some guidance as businesses, because if you don't have employees safe, if you're not safe, there's a lot that we have to really think about. So I'm going to turn it over to Danielle so that she can jump into our first question. Get out your pens, take out your paper so you can take some notes, and tag a friend and let them know. Come and join from the ground up.
Well, thank you, Miss Dr. Stacey C. Grant. And our first question for our guest today is, I'm going to start with you, Latoya, and that is, what are the updated types of policies and practices business owners should put in place to address COVID-19 and its variants?
So employers should be familiar with COVID-19 related policies on three levels. There's the local level, the state level, and the federal level. I'll spend a little time on the local level because those laws supersede federal and state. The first is the mask mandate. As you know, anyone who is indoors, they're required to wear a mask. My recommendation for business owners is that you actually strongly recommend and provide KN95 masks, K94 masks, and N95 masks, or medical grade masks, right? And then there is the vaccination mandate that we have to be aware of as business owners. The former mayor, Bill de Blasio, put into place a vaccination mandate for everyone in New York City to ensure that they have at least their first dose of the vaccine by December 27th. So business owners should by now be compliant and or be exploring the exemption process. I always recommend that you have an exemption approach, meaning if there is someone who has a medical condition or someone who has strong religious beliefs, they ought to be able to opt out by way of the exemption process and by way of accommodations. The exemption process can be a little tricky in that one really needs to go through the interactive process. And the most frequent exemptions are the medical exemptions, and for those who have COVID or those whom have just recovered from COVID. The reason for that is medical professionals are not recommending that you get the vaccination until 90 days has passed, which gives your body enough time to expel the antibodies. The religious exemptions are also quite important. And my advice to business owners here is please, please, please don't ignore the exemption process. The religious exemptions, as an employer, my suggestion is that you ensure that you give your employee the opportunity to demonstrate whether this exemption or this request is genuine and sincere. Some examples of that. Has the person ever been vaccinated, right? If they quote scripture and they say, hey, I'm avid believer in the Bible, and the Bible says, well, the Bible didn't say we can't vaccinate. If the person is staunchly against vaccination, then they have to demonstrate why. Some of the things that we see is people who say, hey, the vaccination has pig byproducts. Well, so does Skittles, so does Cheetos, so does Jello. So do you consume those things? If you do, then it would not be considered a sincere belief. And I'm not saying that the person is not sincere. I'm saying that based on the exemption and the accommodation laws, the request would not be considered sincere. It would not pass the litmus test for an exemption process. Partitions are important. We see that all over the place. Sanitization stations are also important. Please include that in your policies, and also provide hand sanitizers for your team. Contact tracing, contact trace, and ensure that after someone has made you aware of them having been exposed or having gotten back a positive test result, make sure that you're deep cleaning your environment as well, right? Whether it be a shared space or an individual space, we want to make sure that we are limiting the impact and the contamination level of COVID. And the final thing here we'll share is the quarantine protocol. Make sure that you are aware of the quarantine protocols. They change very frequently. Use CDC as your Bible, as your guide, because currently the CDC has said, hey, we're reducing the quarantine period to 5 days from 10 days. And they're also allowing for asymptomatic folks to return to the workforce. That is something that you need to determine internally and consider the risk and liability of having someone return to the workforce without you knowing about their contamination levels, right? So ensure that you have an internal policy about quarantine and isolation. You isolate when you're COVID positive, you quarantine when you have been exposed. Make a delineation between exposures. Is it a secondary exposure? Is it a first exposure? A primary exposure. If Latoya was exposed to someone who has COVID, Latoya has a primary exposure. If Latoya was exposed to someone who has COVID and someone was exposed to Latoya, that person is a secondary exposure. Folks who have secondary exposures are not required to quarantine. However, primary exposures should be quarantined out of an abundance of caution. Finally, I know I said finally before, but finally, really, make sure you identify a person, a point of contact. That person should be HR or should have confidentiality privileges because of the nature of the information that will be shared. Test results, vaccination status, and proof of vaccination, exposures, that is all protected health information. And in the wrong person's hand, that can be a breach of confidentiality and, of course, HIPAA laws. So please ensure you have a designated a place like covid@xyz.org for your organization, where all of the results in the vaccination tests, proof of vaccination can be sent, and also identify a person so that that person can be the keeper of all the information, which limits the possibility of breach of data.
That was very thorough. I mean, we can't say we don't know what a primary exposure, secondary exposure. If you sneezing and you don't feel good, you got to think twice before you come in the hood. Okay, I'm trying to rhyme this morning. I don't know what got into me, but the point is, the point is that we really need this information because you're talking about HIPAA laws, employment. and labor laws. Like there's a lot that goes into this whole discussion, whether you have 4 employees or 40 employees or 400 employees as a small business. That is critical information. And the cleaning, I mean, sidebar to talking about this, businesses that are doing cleaning, that are doing disinfecting, this is a great time. I have another stream. I need to get them ramped up because people need to make sure that they're in a safe environment. And this virus spreads so quickly that we want to make sure that you are safe. So thank you for that's a mouthful. I hope everyone's taking notes. And good morning, Desiree. We appreciate you, Ruthia Quinn, tuning in. So I don't know if Danielle has a follow-up question to that because there's so much that you packed in, but we'll probably touch on it as we go through because I want to hear from Latoya what other practices should business owners put in place. So we're going to ask you that question as well because there is so much that needs to be considered and it's happening in real time and changing so quickly.
Sure, absolutely. Good morning, everyone. First and foremost, I want to say that we are now at the 2-year mark and businesses, it's important to recognize that businesses have done so much over the last 2 years from trying to get it right, trying to protect themselves, trying to protect employees, trying to protect their customers from putting social distancing in place, masks, plexiglasses, altering work schedules, putting in remote schedules. And I mean, just altering so many things. So they have so many things to be commended for. And HR has been really, really at the forefront. And in addition to HR being overwhelmed, you have a whole workforce that has been overwhelmed and just trying to really deal with all of this, as much as possible. And so one of the things that is really important for businesses of all sizes, and particularly, smaller firms, is that they really need to make sure that they're paying attention. And particularly when you're in like the New York City area, you have the city laws and then you have your state laws, and then you have federal laws, so when we're in this tri-state area, it's not just, just the state and then, federal, there's another layer there. And so it's important that you leverage those resources. And so when you look at, just focusing on New York City, for example, like New York City has its own website. New York City has a website specifically designated to COVID. Then you have New York State, and then you have the federal. And in addition to all of these resources, a lot of times there are templates there to just, if you don't have these resources available, you're looking to start or you're looking to revamp, start there. But most importantly, once you start, it's important that you partner with an attorney who, specifically an employment attorney, will, have this knowledge and this information to help you along the way. So if you're going to put these policies and procedures together, you have to have it reviewed by an attorney. And also, when you implement the policy, it's important that, I can't say this enough, that it applies to everyone across the board. Yes, you're going to have some exceptions, but what you can't do is say, we're going to do this for this group or this individual, and then we're not going to do it for another group or individual, because now you move into a different area, which is discrimination. And so you don't want to go down that road ever. And that's with any policy and procedure. But you do have all types of situations coming up. And so you do have to have, it's important to have someone that's designated as much as possible. If you're a smaller firm, you don't have anyone that you can designate it, see if you can outsource it. But as an owner, as the leaders in your organization, you're ultimately responsible for ensuring that the policies and procedures are being put in place, they're effective, and they're being executed and communicated, and that employees are following them, and that you're just doing what you need to do for your organization, whether you were a restaurant owner, a salon owner, a gym, or an office. So, it's really important that when you put these policies and procedures together, that you roll them out. One of the things that the policies and procedures that I wanted to touch on really quickly is around vaccines. So last summer and early fall, many organizations thought that they were going to be able to start bringing their employees back to work. And they thought that if you're fully vaccinated, that you can come back into the office, and then ultimately that was okay, and that you could be around. And many people came back to the office, and even if they came back part-time, when they did come back to the office, they weren't wearing masks. And so many of them weren't boosted. And now we get into the fall season, the flu season. Now Omicron, now another variant, Omicron, has come upon us. And now we're just in the flu season, pneumonia season, Omicron, coronavirus is still going on. And now so many organizations have said, now we're not going to go back to a full staff. We'll continue with remote options until further notice, or until summer of this year for right now. And so I think that we have to be mindful that at this point, that if you're going to have people come into your office, it's important that you ask people to put their mask on so they're not infecting other people, because we do know that we can have breakthrough cases. We do know that that is real. And so we need to have policies and procedures, the same policies and procedures in place. So if those people become infected, that you know what to do and that you can keep everyone safe. So I think that, having vaccines when you're, determining what statuses look like across the board. So if you're going to have an event, if you're going to have people come back to your office, when you're having clients come back into your office, are you now going to be saying that individuals need to be fully vaccinated? If fully vaccinated, what does fully vaccinated mean? You need to determine what fully vaccinated means. Generally, that means you have a Pfizer or Moderna, 2 doses of the Pfizer or Moderna. But now some organizations are saying, in addition to that, you need to be boosted. That is fully vaccinated. So you need to explain what that is in this point. Is that 2 doses of Pfizer or Moderna? Or is that 2 doses of Pfizer, Moderna and boosted? And then, there's some feedback as far as, should you take a Johnson & Johnson? I won't get into that. However, you need to specify, what does fully vaccinated mean. In addition, I would also recommend additional hygiene and protocols for safeties, as far as continuing to implement social distancing, wearing masks, and those are mandates anyway at this point when you're inside. But you do have to be mindful when you're going between different states. What does that mean? Because New Jersey doesn't fully look like New York City versus Connecticut. And we all know in the tri-state, we travel between these states, but whether we live there, work there, and just various meetings. So you just need to be mindful of that and communicate that upfront to your clients and your employees, and be consistent across the board.
Thank you. Thank you again. A very thorough answer. I mean, both of you just gave right there. We could end the show right now if we needed to.
Exactly.
But we have a lot more to unpack. But I do have a question that came up organically as I heard both you ladies providing your answers, and that is, tomorrow, folks will be able to get free home kits from the federal government. And so I know this is, again, real time, and there may not be an answer, but I just want to ask you both for guidance in regards to that. Like, do you have your employees order these home kits and then they have to test every week, or or if they feel symptoms, you tell them to take a home test kit? Is there any way you integrate that ability to now get home test kits free into your policies and practices? So I am going to start with Latoya this time. And, I don't know if there's an answer yet, because again, this is hot off the press. It starts tomorrow, but because it is tomorrow, I just thought about it.
Sure, absolutely. So this new program through the government is for households, and you can receive, I believe, up to 4 test kits per household. What I have shared and recommended in the past is that this is a household. So I'm imagining, and at this point, we don't really have guidance, or there's no right or wrong answer. But at this point, I'm imagining that when households go online to this website and they're able to order their kits, they're doing it for their household, and they're going to distribute them amongst their family members, right? And so they're not necessarily going to say, unless it's a timing issue, that, okay, I take this test kit, I take this test, and then I'm going to submit the results, for work. Because if I have to do it on a weekly basis, then after a month, I'm going to run out, or perhaps after submitting 2, I'll run out because if I have other members. Now, if you have 4 kits, so depending on, I believe it's probably about 2 in each kit. But if you're distributing it amongst your family members, then I don't see how that would be effective for submitting test results to your employer. What I recommend, and I have recommended in the past, is that employers partner with other healthcare organizations for testing. Identify centers where you can go and get through the state and versus through the state and locally, where you can go and get testing for free. Many employers, are able to do that, bring them on site, or just, direct their employees, to a center, and, they can, test, weekly or every other week, whatever the requirements are. I have seen where some employees have been told by their employers they now have to get tested weekly, and they're not giving them any guidance. So they're just kind of scrambling, and they're sending messages out through Facebook groups and different areas saying, hey, can you tell me where to go get a test, because it's required by my employer now. So you just kind of say, hey, to your employee, I need you to go get testing, but then you just kind of leave them out there to just figure it out on their own. It really sends a bad message back to the employer. So I think it's important for them to do their due diligence, take the time to identify partners and resources, and then share those resources with their employees. So if you want things done, it's important as employers that we help our employees help us.
Absolutely. And we have a question in the chat, or a comment, so I want to make sure that we acknowledge Yolanda. She said, does everyone need to walk with PCR test results, since all vaccinated and non-vaccinated can be infected with the virus?
I think that's a really good question. One of the things that we do at my organization is to require PCRs, because based on my experience, the rapid tests, you can receive false negatives or false positives. And so the PCRs, we have seen a higher accuracy rate with PCR tests. For Yolanda's question, she does have to keep in mind, however, there are some criteria or stipulations specific to PCRs. As an example, is it within 24 hours? Is it within 72 hours, right? So check with wherever you're going, whether it be your employer, whether it be a place of business, whether it be a stadium, you do need to make sure that you're aware of their requirements before you walk with a PCR result. I'd love to add here, Latoya also mentioned folks not knowing testing sites. One of the things that I've done is I've gone to the mayor's website and have compiled a list of testing sites that we have shared with our employee population when we required weekly testing. We also provided on-site testing, and we continue to partner with New York City Health and Hospitals for the at-home kits. Now, as it pertains to the test results, at-home kits for me personally, my professional perspective is that it is for your personal peace of mind. I am not certain about the efficacy of those tests because they are so new. So again, organizationally, we require a PCR, but if you take an at-home test and you say get a positive result, or recommendation is that you head to a testing site that will provide you with lab issued results, and we will take that for our record, but we will not take a picture of your at-home test or the results of your at-home test in order to clear you to return to work, or in order for you to honor that weekly testing requirement, which, by the way, the Supreme Court threw out. They blocked last week, Thursday, and now only healthcare professionals are required to be vaccinated. But as Latoya and I said earlier, remember, local laws supersede. So New York City law supersede New York State law, and certainly supersede federal. If you're in New York City, you do need to make sure you're familiar with the New York City related laws, which then means we still have to make sure all of our employees are vaccinated or have an exemption on file.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And the reason I asked that was only because of what you both, mentioned, is that the at-home test kits may not necessarily be, accurate. And so people need to know, as business owners as well as employees need to know that they cannot utilize that as opportunity to say, hey, I am negative. They still need to get their PCR test. So, thank you so much for sharing that. I think you both meant, really discuss where businesses could get up-to-date information about the health, this health crisis. They need to go both to the city, state, and federal websites to get all the information. But I want to ask you also, are there any additional websites or resources that you think are very, very important that our guests should know about, that you go to get up-to-date information in addition to the city, state, and federal websites? So again, I'm going to ask Latoya
Sure.
to address that first.
Sure, absolutely. It's important that business owners and employers, you have to stay connected with your attorneys and with the legal requirements that are coming out, because it's constantly changing. And so one of the resources that I like is Jackson Lewis, because you can get relevant, real-time, quick information based on various industries that is, coming out. And what I like about, for example, when you're looking at New York State, you will get information not only at the state level, but at the New York City level. So that's one of my favorite. And again, because I'm an HR professional, I've been doing this for a long time, professional and trade associations and chambers of commerce. So for me, SHRM and the American Staffing Association, they have legal consultants, on hand. So they're always putting out information. So just through the various subscriptions and the membership, we get information there. But depending on what your industry is, you should be connected to professional associations so you can get those updates through them. And you all know that I'm a big fan of chambers of commerce. So if you're not connected to a chamber of commerce, you should be. Like your Brooklyn Chambers of Commerce, Queens Borough Chambers of Commerce, Manhattan Chambers of Commerce, New Jersey State Chambers of Commerce, the African American Chambers of Commerce. There's so many different chambers of commerce, and they're wonderful, and they really work hard on behalf of business owners. And so, they have, and a lot of times they have legal attorneys on staff and that they're partnering with. So they will help or recommend you, to these individuals to get the information that you're looking for. So I definitely recommend, some of those as resources.
Thank you. And Latoya, I saw you nodding your head in the affirmative, but is there any other resources that you would add to the comprehensive list that Latoya provided?
Absolutely. I echo the efficacy of trade associations as well as SHRM. If you do not have an HR department, please get a membership to SHRM. It'll be the best $150 you've spent. They have templates for policies and procedures. They have a plethora of articles that are helpful to inform you as a small business owner or a business owner in and of itself. The key to New York portal is also a wealth of information. 311 has additional information as well to help business owners navigate COVID and the pandemic. The New York City Department of Small Businesses, also the New York City Business Restart Hotline is a resource you can use to get real-time solutions as you are trying to make determinations for your business. And if you can partner with a legal firm, if you do not have an attorney on retainer, you can try to partner with Legal Aid Society. They give pro bono, they do pro bono work. So if it isn't something that's in your budget, you can also look into, like Latoya said, Jackson Lewis, but you can go on their website and sign up for their newsletters, because as things are coming hot off the presses, attorneys or firms, legal firms, are creating articles that will inform the masses on how to move forward. And of course, they offer consultant services as well.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so, with that said, I'm going to pass the baton back over to my co-host, Miss Dr. Stacey C. Grant, because we got a ton of questions to still ask. And you ladies, you are not disappointing.
Not at all. We have to give them a midway round of applause because this information is just incredible. So in addition, we're going to share a couple more websites that give you that information. Again, to go back, this is the New York City Department of New York City Small Business Solutions. So that's an opportunity for you to go ahead and get additional resources in real time. And then we're also going to share with you SHRM, which you heard our two experts share, because that is where you can get that additional support. Why try to do everything yourself? Stay in your lane, be brilliant at what you do, and get the right people involved to give you the information that is necessary. So we're going to put the link also in the chat so that you are able to go and visit that. But now we're going to pivot into another part of the conversation that is so important. But I see there's a question. So let's get our question answered before I get into my question. As we navigate this pandemic landscape, are there any inquiries or requests that are against the law for employees to request or ask the employees, as we should be protected to not be forced to return to a workplace environment we may not feel safe in? So let's address that before I dive into the next part of our discussion. So who wants to answer that?
I'll jump in here and say, as an employee, yes, you absolutely need to know your rights, but you also need to know the mandates that are levied or that employers have to follow, right? So more often than not, we are making decisions based on law and not based on, preference. Especially in this time of great resignation, when we're losing so many staff, we really try to be moderate in our decision-making process. So some of the things that you do need to know is, where is that line, right? So legally, you have to be vaccinated based on New York City law. But if you're in Long Island, that might be different. If you're upstate, that might be different, right? So it just depends on where you are and the laws that govern your jurisdiction or your area. You do need to make yourself aware of that so that you can be protected. You also need to make sure that your employer has the proper support. So the sanitation, they deep clean, they sanitize every day. They provide you with the health and hygiene equipment that you need in order to keep yourself safe. They are implementing and holding accountable those who do not follow the mask mandates. They are making sure that you're social distancing, and their conversations surrounding that, and then repercussions for those who are not following. So that's just piercing the surface, but that question is a really good one, and so much more to share in this very limited time.
We may have to do a round two.
Yeah. That is a lot of information that we do need. We probably do, because this is developing in real time and so much is changing. So we're going to touch on another piece of it, but great question. And thank you for tuning in. So now, with all of this to process, our mental health has been severely impacted. Also, just the wellness in general, practices that people don't get overwhelmed and burnt out on the job. And what we're seeing are the numbers really interesting when it comes to how professionals are dealing with mental health. And our hope is that nobody suffers in silence, right? That we can talk about things and create space for people to get help and be supported. So what, from a human resources standpoint, can business owners do to focus on mental health and physical health for their staff and even for themselves? Because if you're not wrapped all the way, how are you going to lead? I'm just saying. So Latoya, let's start with you on this question.
Mental health, during the pandemic has increased significantly. And we have to, as I said before, we have to constantly communicate the importance of wellness and taking care of ourselves. But as business leaders and owners, whether you know own your own business or you work in a corporation, whether that's profit or nonprofit, we have responsibilities to make sure that we're communicating the importance of wellness and modeling that behavior. It has to start with us. And so, because if you create a culture of just continuously working, you don't communicate anything about wellness, then you're creating a culture of burnout. That's essentially what you're doing. And so you have to put things in place, and they can be simple things that don't really cost much. That is beneficial, to our employees. Again, gym memberships, partnering, with a local gym, a local gym chain, where you can offer discounts, to your employees and encouraging them to go. Bringing in a wellness coach and talking to your employees. Doing like a virtual session if your workforce is all remote, and really helping them to understand how to balance the work that they're doing, and then those families who have small children or teenagers at home, or a combination of both, or you have aging parents that you're taking care of. We have to constantly keep in mind that there are multiple facets that our employees are facing, and that we have to understand that during this time that there's extra pressure that they're trying to keep up with, in addition to their workload. So we have to model the behavior and talk about things that will keep our employees healthy and safe. Again, we have to start with us, and that can be, again, just simply in addition to like gym memberships, for example, offer to shut the office down on a Friday. For a couple of weeks, and not just around a holiday, but kind of take a temperature check of your workforce, and then shut the office down, for a day or two, giving some time back to your employees to take time to do what they want to do for themselves and their families. Talk about meditation and sitting in peace, the importance of that, and carving out time on your calendar. Just take time to eat. I mean, sometimes I know that you ladies know this very well. We can just be in the office, at our computers or on our laptops, and you might grab a coffee or a tea in the morning, with your breakfast, and then next thing you know, it's 3:00. So now you've missed lunch. So it's important to carve out time throughout your day to take small breaks, whether that's going for a walk, but also taking time just to eat. I have to be reminding myself of that as well. And so it's the little things that you can do, but we have to communicate that as leaders. I'm a big proponent that we can't place all of that on HR. HR can help initiate those conversations, but it takes all of the leaders in the organization to communicate that to all of our employees, that wellness is important. And then we have to lead by example, to do that.
That is great, but you made a lot of people feel a little guilty for the gym memberships that they're not using. I'm just saying, I want to step on any toes, but those are little things that can make a big difference. And I appreciate what you shared. There is another question or comment. I think it's also about grief and loss. How are we supporting that in the workplace, in addition to change management, working from home and homeschooling and pushing people to the max? Desiree, girl, you preaching a whole sermon there, honey. That is what we are experiencing and seeing, but that's real talk. We really need to, and she said the work of mindfulness has become a very key place in centering. Thank you for offering that, because that's the conversations that we need to have, especially as business owners, boss women, boss men, doing all of these great things. We don't talk about those vulnerable spaces. Grief and loss is real. We have not experienced this level of trauma in the past 2 going on 3 years in our lived lifetime. Loss is never easy, but the volume by which it's happening, we have to find ways to manage that. And for me, I've just been sharing what's helpful is how you pay tribute to a person who's transitioned is by how you live and how you carry those memories, and how maybe you even creatively create space for your employees to do that. That is something that can help you deal with the unfortunate reality that we're seeing. And I think those conversations need to happen more. So thank you, Desiree, for adding on to what Latanya shared. That is very key. And we have to open up more spaces. Sometimes we can take a work meeting and turn it into a mental health chat. How about that? Right? Just have a chance to say, okay, we know we have deadlines and we have deliverables that need to be done, but maybe it's just have a conversation. How are you feeling? How are you really feeling? Not the commercial, how you feeling, and you on to the next thing. But really building relationship. And if we haven't learned anything in this pandemic, life is precious, relationships are priceless. And if you want the best output from your staff, they need to know that you are invested in who they are as a person. So thank you, Latanya, for that. But Latoya, you look like you about to jump in, girl. Go on and tell us what you want to share.
Latoya, before you jump in, I just want to, because I've had a personal experience. Well, I say personal experience. I have a good friend who literally is a business owner and lost her brother suddenly. And, so it's that grief. And we've been speaking about it because I think it is important that we give, as business owners, give our staff that space. But I also think is, to support them, as Stacy said, and just to talk and everything. But it's critically important also that we allow them to grieve on their own. May that be give them time off if needed to really be able to process it. Because when I was speaking to my friend, she literally, because it happened over the holidays, did not tell her staff. She said, I gave my staff off a week between Christmas and New Year's. I don't want to burden them and tell them that my brother died. And I said, you cannot do that, because one, they want to support you in this. And two, your flight was delayed even getting to New York. And, you may get delayed going back to North Carolina. And so therefore you need to even tell them on a practical level so that they're prepared to handle what they need to handle for you. So I think it's not just about the support of giving people space. I think it's critically important that we allow people to grieve, give them space to grieve, and give them time off and things of that nature as well. Because we tend to think we are so strong, and we tend to jump back into our day-to-day activities without giving ourselves that opportunity to grieve, which ends up, having impact on us in other ways, like our physical health. And so with that said, Latoya, I know that was a mouthful, but we want to hear what you have to say as well.
Sure. I'm so happy you shared that story, because it is so challenging to deal with loss, especially as you are looking for your employees to perform at their best, right? So one of the things that I have done is to bring in grief counselors. I have had in my career 2 employees whom have committed suicide, and that has really crippled our operation to the extent where we routinely provide grief counseling on site, whether it be one-on-one or group sessions. And in addition to that, leverage your employee assistance programs too. They provide grief counseling. They also provide therapy opportunities. They provide legal assistance, etc. So if you're an organization that has an employee assistance program, please leverage that, share that with your team, whether it be monthly, send out a reminder of all of the resources that they have that can help them to balance their work and their life, and to decompress from the very concentrated losses that we're feeling and depletion of our time, right? Bear in mind that the EAP and BetterHelp, as an example, the information that you share is confidential, unless, of course, you have suicidal ideations or you have thoughts of harming others. They're mandated reporters, so they have to report that. But anything else that you share with them, though it's an employer solution, your employees will, the information your employees share with them will not come back to you. And you should lift that up as you're communicating this information to them as well, because it makes them much more trusting. It makes them much more open to use these resources when they need it. Consider partnering with nonprofits who might provide pro bono group work as well, therapy sessions as well. And then let's focus on fun, right? The work has to be done, but burnout and vicarious trauma is happening. So host virtual events or on-site events with proper social distancing, of course, that will help the employees to take their minds off of their everyday, whether it be a paid party or a mixologist demonstration, right? That will help them to get some joy with their coworkers and not focus so much on the deliverables, the performance goals, etc. So that's just a few ways that you can lighten the load, but also provide the real time solutions that they need.
I love that. Wow. This is just, it's getting gooder and gooder. Yes, I made it up. And we are winding down the show. We definitely might have to do a part 2 with you. My rhyming skills for
But then
2022.
I
Okay,
wanted to add to that if I could really quickly.
sure.
Specifically around what Danielle, what you shared with your friend about the importance of communicating and sharing with her staff. She shared a vulnerable side, and that's what I'm talking about when I say model the behavior. Um, if we want our employees to be open to us, we have to be open with them. And so when we as leaders share, what's going on in our personal lives, it gives them space to share as well. Because employees will model what they see in the workforce, and if they feel that they can't share, then when they come into the organization and when they come to work, they're holding all of that in. And so, and then you won't know. And so, and even if you provide space and you ask employees, to share and to be open and to let them know that it's okay, to share things that are going on, so you can be a resource to them. They may continue to be hesitant because there hasn't been a trust built there, and that trust, can simply be built by just being transparent and communicating. And so when you model the behavior by being transparent and being open, you give grace and you allow others to do the same. So if you're creating the space, it means nothing if you're not willing, to be vulnerable in front of your staff and allow them to and to share and give back to you so you can really support one another. So I just wanted to just share that with you.
Thank you, Latoya. And I'm just going to say, I'm going to build upon what you just said, is that, she just texted me last weekend. Well, I text her and she texted me back and to see how she was doing. And she said to me, Danielle, thank you for that sage advice, because she said, when I got back to the office, the staff had, without me even saying anything to them, reduced my load, because she's a surgeon, reduced my load by 50%. They had a gift bag for me waiting for me, and they had classical music playing for me as I came. And I was like, see, so thank you for sharing that. And it's so, so important. So that was affirmation that she did the right thing.
Absolutely.
Indeed. That's a great, great example, and condolences to you, Latoya, as you shared about, the staff that committed suicide. That's just so hard. Those are conversations that are just so hard. And this was full and rich dialogue. We had a whole section left to talk about some more with the talent and how to really find the best and deal with this concept, right, that everyone is talking about when it comes to finding good employees and the great resignation. So I don't want to rush it. I don't think my co-host wants to rush it either. So it looks like in real time, we're asking for a part 2. So everybody in favor, let's just clap our hands that we're going to have a part 2. With our 2 experts today, because everyone has been so engaged in this conversation that have been viewing. And we thank you for taking time out of your schedule to talk through this with us. We're in this together. Danielle shared that when we started this show, this was our effort in giving back while we're figuring it out in real time. We have to make decisions. We had to do the big pivot word when we first started. And as this whole variant and XYZ and everybody else and Omicron, Lottie Dottie and everybody, like all this stuff is going to continue, unfortunately, to unfold in real time. And we're here with the real time solution. So since we're going to put a pin in the part 2, I would love for my co-host to share her final words after we hear just some additional summary thoughts on what we started talking about from both of our guests. We thank you for your time. Thank you for agreeing in real time. We have you on camera that we will be back for a part 2 to continue this conversation. But your expertise in this area is truly treasured. Thank you for sharing with our small business owners and MWBEs today. So final thoughts, Latoya, and then Latanya, and then over to Danielle as we close out this episode of From the Ground Up.
Final thoughts: engage, engage, engage. You cannot resolve a challenge that your employee population is experiencing without being aware of said experiences, right? Have frequent check-ins, whether it be one-on-one or town hall style, knowing that in a town hall setting, people won't always be comfortable sharing their questions, and when you're on your one-on-ones, it's probably a little bit less intimidating, and it might take a few tries, but be intentional about expressing to your employee population how important it is for them to focus on health, whether it be mental health or physical health, and then put your money where your mouth is. Really important. If you say burnout is a challenge and we're going to focus on reducing it, then you will have to make some tough decisions. It might look like reducing, clientele, or not taking on any additional, in order to ensure that your employees have an opportunity to focus, to decompress, to compartmentalize their homes from their work, because most people are working in their homes, and that in and of itself is very challenging. So reach out to your professionals, and always remember, you cannot pour from an empty cup. Secure your mask first. And I don't mean the KN95s. I mean, pour into yourself, lean on your sister, lean on your whomever. Pull on your, I learned this week actually, pull on your village. They want to show up for you, let them.
Awesome.
So I will definitely say start where you are. Just know that it's a journey. Know that as HR professionals, business owners, you don't have to have all of the answers, but do know that there are resources that you can go to. So just know that you just need to take the time to get those resources, but they are out there, they are available, and that you can do this. Continue to communicate, build those open and trustful communications, be transparent, and be vulnerable and share with employees, and allow employees to share and give back to you. And just know, when we make work better for humans, we make humans better at work. So just do the best that you can, and just keep going and take it one day at a time.
Oh, wait, hold on. We gotta when you make work better for humans. You wait, run that beat back again, as the kids would say.
When we make work better for humans, we make humans better at work.
Oh, child, that was a good one. Sorry, I just had to jump in. That hit my spirit. Over to you, Danielle.
And you know, Miss Dr. Stacey and C. Grant, I couldn't write fast enough. I was trying to catch it. So, we got to catch the minute. But anyway, with that said, I just want to say that you ladies did not disappoint. I hope that those participants who came on this morning, they felt it was well worth their time. I mean, I feel like, as a business owner, I got something out of it, and I hope you all did as well. So again, this work that Stacey and we do, it comes from our heart. We really, really take the time to really think about what are the real-time issues that we think business owners are dealing with, and we try to find subject matter experts like our two wonderful guests who could give you the solutions that you need. We will continue to be here every 2 weeks. We're committed. We are your partners, and we just ask that you show up as well. And I always say, knowledge is one thing, but it only becomes wisdom when you apply the knowledge that you receive. So we hope that you take this information, you can continue to apply it to grow your business in multiple ways. And we are wishing you in 2022 peace, abundance, prosperity, and good health. Until we see you again, be safe and be well.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.